This is the Entrepreneurs United podcast with your hosts, John St. Pierre and Rich Hoffman.
Hey, entrepreneurs, if you find yourself in a place where you're generally happy with your business, but you also are compelled to grow, you're going to want to listen to the conversation that John and I have next. John, I want to read you a parable that I got exposed to. It's actually from Greg Nazirka this past weekend. I'm going to read the parable, even though he didn't read it. He just gave it to me, and I'd love to chat about it with you. Here's what it is. It's called the Parable of the Mexican Fisherman. A successful businessman was vacationing in a small coastal village when he came across a fisherman relaxing by his boat after a morning catch. The businessman asked him how long he'd been fishing. "Not long," the fisherman replied. "Why don't you stay out longer and catch more fish?" the businessman asked. The fisherman said, "I have enough to support my family and enjoy my life." "But what do you do with the rest of your time?" the businessman pressed in. The fisherman answered, "I sleep late, fish a little, play with my children, take a siesta with my wife, and stroll into the village each evening to sip wine and play the guitar with my friends." The businessman scoffed and said, "You could spend more time fishing, save the money, buy a bigger boat, then a fleet, and eventually run a big company. After years of hard work, you could sell the company, become rich, and retired." The fisherman asked, "And then what?" "Then," the businessman said, "you could move to a small coastal village, sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take siestas with your wife, and enjoy the evenings with your friends."
Oh my gosh. Are we insane or what? What are we doing? Let's just go fishing for an hour and get it all now.
If there's everybody wants to grow. Grow, 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 grow. What happens with a business owner who has grown to a point in their income and in their quality of life that they go, "This is a pretty good place for me"? Do they need to keep grow, 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 grow? I remember we did a podcast with Chet, and this parable wasn't part of the podcast, but he was like, "If you're one of the people that's comfortable, like, you're not my people." Like, somehow for a business owner, there's shame involved with not being the grow, 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 grow guy. And some people saying, "Yeah, I got it pretty good. I'm enjoying life."
Yeah, so I don't know who said it. One of the quotes is growth is the ideology of a cancer cell.
Oh,
And
expand on that before you.
just the idea that cancer cells like to grow. And so you have to be careful when you just grow, let's just grow everything. Like growth isn't always good, but we are wired as humans to want to grow. And there's a lot of conversation, Rich, as you've heard, and I may mess this one up, but life is about the journey, not the destination. And the amount of miserable people that grow, 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 get to the destination and then feel empty. And there's nothing left because they grew so quick, so fast, so young in a lot of cases where they just don't know what to do next. They have no more purpose. They're like, I already did all the things I was planning on doing. And they don't enjoy the journey. So there's a lot there. We were talking about this, Rich, that when I wrote the book, The $100 Million Journey, about the 7 principles of entrepreneurial success, and here's what it all is. In that book, I actually shared a story that I think has made a lot more impact to people than I actually thought it was going to make an impact. And that story was when I was growing my business, trying to get to 100 million as fast as I could, as aggressively as I could, and failed miserably. In that process, when the aftermath of it, I realized I actually didn't really know what I was trying to accomplish as a person, not as a business person. As a business person, I knew exactly what I was trying to accomplish. I was trying to get this big and get all the accolades of being the CEO of a $100 million company and look at the culture you built and look what you've done. As a business person, I knew exactly what I was trying to do. But as a human, as a husband, as a father, as a person, as a friend, I had no idea what I was trying to accomplish. Now, I'm not trying to say that I was a bad husband, a bad friend. I'm not trying to say that. What I was trying to say is I didn't have any life goals and purpose and mission of the journey I wanted to be on in my life. And so my business and my life weren't really connected. And it really threw me off kilter when the whole failure happened. I was like, who am I? I just lost a lot of my identity. I thought growth was the end all be all of everything. And so I really connect with this parable you just read, because at the end of the day, there is a lot of pressure on people to grow, not just entrepreneurs, people in general, to always be growing. But what are you ultimately looking for? And I challenge entrepreneurs all the time. Do you have a 30-year life plan in different segments of your life that you're trying to achieve or get to or enjoy? What are you trying to enjoy this year and next year? Like, we have to take those moments as very precious. And yet we just always want the bigger boat, the more fishermen, the more poles, the more money. To what end?
I think on the other side of the coin, there's always a reason to grow when you employ people. And the reason to grow is that you want to retain good people. And retaining good people means they need more opportunity. In my experience, A players need a change of responsibility every 3 to 5 years. And if they don't get a change of responsibility every 3 to 5 years, they end up looking for it somewhere else. And the reason for that, John, is their skill goes up and their skill outmatches what the challenge is in their role. And they get a little bit bored. So that change of responsibility increases what the challenge is. That makes them feel like, and they are actually not quite enough to do the new responsibility with excellence. So now they're gapped again. They want to get good again, and they know what getting good feels like, and they want to do that in this new responsibility. So they have to get more skilled in order to be in flow of their skill with that challenge. But then they end up getting overskilled for that challenge. That's where we run into trouble. So the other side of that coin is there's always a reason to grow when we really care for our people and we want to give them opportunities to grow. But there's also balance with that of how much is enough. And is it okay if you're serving X number of clients at X satisfaction level with X profit and people are making a good living and it's a great culture? Is it okay to not grow, even if it's for a period of a couple of years?
I have a call out here that I want to connect the dots on, maybe a little bit of a challenge. Entrepreneurs are A players. A lot of them are, anyway. They want a change of scenery and growth every 3 to 5 years too. If their business isn't growing and they're not going through the growth scale of a business and hiring more people and having that challenge and maybe growing more customers and getting that challenge, and if they're not doing that with their business, aren't they going to get bored? Aren't they going to get complacent? Are they going to be disconnected with what they're doing anymore? And the nap and the siesta with your wife every afternoon and playing music with my friends tonight every single day sounds like a lot of fun. But actually a funny show our kids used to watch when they were very young. It was an Elmo special called Christmas Every Day. And Elmo had Christmas every single day for a whole year. But
Let me
towards
guess,
the end,
it wasn't awesome
it
anymore.
was not awesome anymore. On the 365th day, he was like, I don't want Christmas ever again. And so how do we overcome that? Because you're like, hey, as an entrepreneur, there's a reason to grow. It's for your people. But I would challenge, don't you need to grow for yourself too, though? Isn't that the other side of the coin, that you are a person and you are an A player and you do need a change of growth where your skills need to kind of get pushed to the next level if they're better than the challenge every 3 to 5 years too?
I was facilitating a peer group a few years ago. And one of the cool things about being a facilitator is you both get to teach and you learn from the people who you facilitate with. And I learned from one of the guys in that group. He said, the mind wants to want. It wants to want, which means it's not happy being in the same place. So you've got to constantly feed things into your life where you are in a position of wanting. Now, John, with respect to your question on, so doesn't that mean even as a solo entrepreneur or whoever, don't you need new challenge every 3 to 5 years also? I'll answer yes, but maybe it doesn't have to be in business. Maybe it's in learning how to play tennis. Maybe it's in learning how to play pickleball. Maybe it's in learning how to fly a plane. maybe that challenge comes from somewhere else and it doesn't have to come from the business.
Yeah, that's awesome, Rich. And I'll give you another really good example of this. Most entrepreneurs' wealth is tied up in maybe two things: their business and their home. If you have a business that's generating good amount of income for you and it's going really well, it's paying for your lifestyle, it's a lifestyle sized business and it's doing well, why take risks potentially to grow that business versus diversify your interest into other assets? Buy some real estate, get the challenge of that. Do other things to expand your portfolio versus putting more eggs in the same basket and trying to quadruple or 10x your current company, to which your wealth is still tied into one thing, and one scenario could actually significantly hurt you. So, one of the things we talk a lot with entrepreneurs about is diversification of your assets. And so, you make a really good point there, which is if I got my business to a point where it's doing really well, it's paying for my lifestyle, it's creating wealth for me, I have two choices. I don't just have one. The one choice I think we always resort to is how can I grow this thing? Well, the other idea is how can I grow myself in other areas? Maybe it's service related areas, charitable areas. Maybe it's doing more with your kids' sports. Maybe it's starting another business. Maybe it's buying passive investments. Maybe it's doing more stock investing. Who knows? But diversifying your interests and diversifying your wealth portfolio makes a lot more sense sometimes than putting more fuel and growing something in one particular basket that could potentially put you at risk.
I've got a few causes that have impacted the life of my family. So I have a grandmother who had Parkinson's. My other grandmother had Alzheimer's. My father now is pre-Alzheimer's. My mother had cancer 4 times, beat it every time, by the way. So it's interesting when you look at a cause like that. By the way, I want to check in and go, do you have causes? Is there a cause that's affected a family member or friend that you would go, yeah, here's something that is there. What are those for you?
Yeah, I don't have a cause specifically that I'm like, hey, this is the cause because it affected my family so much. But every family's been affected by cancer. My wife's brother had spina bifida, things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but not one in particular that I vouch for that I have that much passion behind versus all of them.
Yeah, sure. So it's interesting to think about the skills that we have in business are necessary maybe to apply to some of those causes, to run an event, to run a charitable organization, to do, I don't know, for example, if there was you could just say today, hey, I'm going to be responsible to do a 5K in Portsmouth, New Hampshire for spina bifida. All of those great business skills you have would be necessary and you'd be gapped. You would want to be good at it. You would not be good at it at first. You'd have to go study it. You'd have to figure out what it is and what are all the components and how do you market it. And but at the end of the day, all those business skills you have don't exclusively have to be used for profit. And at the end of the day, to put money in your pocket or diversify income or money in the pocket of your employees, it could be for a cause that's really near and dear. So it's just a bit of a calling to entrepreneurs that if you find yourself in a place where you're in that 3 to 5 years, you've mastered what you're doing, you're making enough money, things are going pretty well, and you're looking to up the challenge. Don't get over involved in the business and create chaos where things are going well. Sometimes we self sabotage that way. You don't have to go create another business or grow. You can find a cause that's really near and dear to your heart and apply all those same business skills, and you're going to want to get good at it and you won't be at first.
There's one element to this whole thing that we're missing that you just maybe touched on and it triggered me a little bit, which is in that parable. Go buy a bigger boat, go get more fishermen, go get more fishing poles, whatever the parable was talking about. But it insinuated that you would have to do all that you would have to manage all these people, that you would work 3 times harder during that period. And when you talk about now, you have a good lifestyle business, go diversify and go do other things. Who's running your business? And it brings back to, what kind of leadership do you have in your organization? How are you building your succession planning? Can somebody else run your company so you don't have to be there, so you can go run the spina bifida 5K? What are you doing there to develop your team? And Rich, I know we talk about this a lot. I know you coach a lot of your entrepreneurs in this area as well. If you're not building the leadership within your organization, you could have a nice business that's generating the nice income that you have, but you're a slave to the business. You cannot leave the business. You cannot go do anything else because your sleeves are up to your elbows, right? And you're digging in it every single day because that's the way you chose to grow your business. You grew your business so that it had to rely on you as the person running it. I would argue that in that parable example, that fisherman potentially could still do all the things he was doing and grow his business if he had the right leadership. And if we have the right leadership in our companies, we can all go do more service and community and go do other investments or other passion interests and all those other things. But you have to build the leadership within your own organization, and it needs to start now. And if you look in your organization right now and you don't know who's going to run your company someday, you don't have that built up yet and you're not there. And it's something that we all need to focus on.
This reminds me of the book that I know when I mention it, I know you're going to go, yes. The book that we read when we were early in business from Robert Kiyosaki on cash flow quadrant.
Yes.
And there were four, I knew you'd go there. There were four different ways, if you remember, to be able to make income. First way is as an employee, work for somebody else's business. The second way is to be self-employed. So self-employed means you're needed. So in the story, you're right, of that fisherman, if he stayed where he is, he's always needed for the business. If he doesn't go to work, he doesn't make money. And we look at self-employed often as like a doctor or a highly paid attorney, where they have a self-employed job, but they don't make money if they don't work. The third one is a business. The business is not self-employed. The business is where, to your point, you've created business leaders where you could go on vacation for a month or you could go do a service project for 2 months and you're still making money in a business. That fourth one is investments, where you have your money working for you by investing in often another business. So you're right, John. For those that are self-employed, the next step may be, how do you replace yourself in some of the things you're doing so you can start making money in your business in the absence of your work? And for those who have a business, it comes back to, how do you replace yourself? So it's not how do you replace yourself like you have to have a successor picked out always. It's how do you replace yourself in terms of the responsibilities. The way you know this is if you walk away from your business for 60 days, and let's say you fly over to Europe and you have vacation, you do some service work, maybe even do some work, you walk away for 60 days. What are the first 5 things that fall down in your business? What fails in your absence? Those first 5 things that would fail are the very first 5 things that should go on the hit list of, who do I need to delegate to and get them skilled up? Or how do I automate that? Delegate or automate. Those are the 2 ways on how you can start replacing some of those responsibilities that the owner constantly has to worry about.
Yeah. And that brings it all the way back. You hit the nail on the head with the cash flow quadrant, and moving from owning a business, scratch that. Moving from running a business to owning a business is really moving from cash flow quadrant 3 to 4, right? How do you make your business an investment? Because you own the business, not a job, because you're running it and you have to be there for it to run. And it takes time, Rich. It takes a long time, but you can do it. And by the process of, back to that fisherman example, right? We all want to have the lifestyle that we aspire to have. Being clear on what that lifestyle is that you want, to me, is a big thing. Knowing what your purpose is, what you're trying to achieve in this thing called life, is really important. Your grander purposes that you want to achieve in life. And then go build the machine that can generate the income that you're looking for. And that machine doesn't have to be necessarily very big. It could be a small machine that generates exactly the type of equity that you're looking to build in your life to achieve the goals that you have. But don't grow for growth's sake, because I've done that. It doesn't necessarily work. You got to have a full plan around it. And I think that's an area that entrepreneurs continue to need development and coaching with their teams and developing that leadership group within their organizations, delegating the tasks that they haven't delegated yet out, and go do that 60-day test. Go do the 30-day test. Heck, do a 2-week test, see what happens. Do you have the team ready to go? I think it's a great example. I'm curious as you think about that parable in your business, and I think about it in my business, what are some changes we'll take going forward as well?
Yeah, I think part of the undercurrent to this whole conversation that is coming up for me is being intentional. If you are self-employed and you select to stay self-employed, that's okay because you selected it. If you're self-employed and you want to be a business owner, then do things to move forward in that direction. If you're a business owner and you want to create more independence, then do things for that. If you want to grow, have a reason and be intentional to grow. If you don't want to grow, have a reason and be intentional to not grow. So I think a lot of this comes down to that life plan, John, and being intentional with our decisions and not just putting one foot in front of the other, trying to survive the next wave of business that comes crashing over us. And then we just end up where we end up. Hopefully we survive. Like, we want to pick, where are we going with this thing and how do we get there? It's that parable of having a ship at sea without a map and without a rudder. That's what it is when you don't have a life plan. Not just a business plan, but a life plan. So you don't want that. You want to know where you are on that map. So you need reality on, where am I now? Where am I going on that map? Where's the land that we're navigating towards in that example of with the ship? And then the rudder is how to get there. That's your plan on how you're going to navigate there. You need all three. Where are you? Where do you want to go? And what's the rudder? How are you going to get there? Be intentional so you don't just end up surviving that next wave and end up where you end up, somewhere in the ocean.
Yeah, certainly, Rich, you and I work with entrepreneurs and helping them with their life plans and business plans and different things. And what I've found, and I did this, so it was really near and dear to my heart, is I felt from a business planning perspective, strategic planning or business planning, like we would all get together, we'd have our plan, it'd be very clear, okay, here's what we're going to do this year. Okay, got it. But I never treated myself like an entity. I never treated my own home or my own life as a balance sheet and a profit and loss statement. And that should have a strategic plan too. And what do I actually want to do? And you do this really well as well, which is then align it to where you're going with your spouse, and do it offsite with your spouse to sit down and go, hey, where are we going with this entity called our lives? What do we want to go achieve? And marry those two together. So it's certainly an area that, if you as an entrepreneur listening to this and feel like you need help or direction, please reach out to us. We have an event called the EUEE, Entrepreneurs United Empowerment Experience, in Winston-Salem in October. Come learn from other people that are actually in the same boat as you, looking to create and build the lives that they aspire to build with purpose, with intentionality. I think it's a great add-on, Rich, to be intentional, but where you're trying to go, not just with your business, but with your life. And if your business is going one way and your life is going the other and they're not aligned, you need that alignment. So get that alignment in your business and your life. Thanks for joining us, Rich. Great conversation, great parable. Thanks for sharing that. That was an awesome conversation.